You're listening to A Deeper Dive, a part of the Winsight Podcast Network.
Why are consumers and franchisees so interested in chicken tenders?
Hello,
Chicken Tenders franchise,
restaurant business,
Huey
and in
Magoo's.
this week's episode
Huey
of A Deeper
Magoo's was
Dive,
one of the fastest growing restaurant chains in the United States last year, with unit count more than doubling. We talk with Andy
Huey
about
Magoo's
this
was one of
growth,
the fastest
why
growing
franchisees
restaurant
are buying
chains in
into
the
the brand,
United
and why
States last
consumers these
year,
days
with
are
unit
so
count
interested
more
in
than
chicken fingers.
doubling.
An
We talk with
abnormally
Andy
large
about this
percentage
growth,
of the
why
fastest growing
franchisees
brands
are
sell
buying into
boneless
the
chicken
brand, and
fingers.
why consumers
We
these
also talk
days are
about
so
why
interested in
Andy
chicken
is the
fingers.
one who
An
heads
abnormally
franchise
large
sales for the brand,
percentage of the fastest
and
growing
what he
brands
looks
sell
for
boneless
in
chicken
an
fingers.
operator. That is
We
a
also talk
fascinating
about
discussion.
why Andy
And
is
we talk about the brand's
one who
overall
heads
history, its shift into
franchise sales for the
drive-through,
brand,
and why the chain
and
still
what
gives
he
its
looks for
franchisees a
in
choice
an
of opening
operator. That is a
in-line
fascinating
locations.
discussion.
It is an
And we talk
interesting
about the
discussion
brand's
about
overall
chicken,
history,
so
its shift
please
into
have a
drive-through,
listen.
and why the chain
And that should
still
do it
gives
for
its
this week's episode of
franchisees
A Deeper
choice of
Dive, which was
opening
edited,
in-line
as always,
locations.
by Kimmy
It is an
Kazmarek.
interesting
Artwork by
discussion
Nico
about
Hines.
chicken,
You may
so
find
please
this
have
and
a
other
listen.
episodes. Okay, I'm here with Andy Howard. Andy, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, so glad to be here, Jonathan. Thank you.
All right, so tell us what's going on with Huey Magoo's, please.
Well, boy, where do we start? We have a huge milestone at the company right now. We just opened our 50th restaurant in Asheville, North Carolina, and we've got another 250 that are on the drawing board and to be open over the next several years. North Carolina will be our 10th state. We've sold in another 12 states, so we're expanding pretty well across the country, mainly through franchising. We've got one corporate store, another one under development, but we are in the franchise business, which I love.
Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about the company's history.
So the company started in 2004 by two young men from Mississippi. They were golfers. They met on the golf team at Ole Miss and became professional golfers and tried to make a living out of it, but couldn't make a living. Both get married, and the wives say, time to get a real job. And they really didn't know what to do other than hit a little golf ball, but they love to eat a chicken tender. Coming from the South, there were lots of little mom and pops, and they said, boy, why don't we just open one up? And, found a young lady consultant that helped them with the secret recipes and the beautiful tender that is still on our menu right now. And they picked Orlando. They saw a void to not only raise a family, but other than Chick-fil-A, that was the only chicken concept in all of Orlando. So they found a spot. We call it the gas station spot, which because it was attached to a gas station, they figured coming from the South, if it's next to a gas station, boy, it must serve a great chicken tender. So they signed the lease, opened the doors in 2004, and it was a little bit, slow going at first, but little by little they did well and opened a second store, and we're kind of somewhat humming along. And then at some point, Andy Howard came along.
So I have to, I have to say, Andy, I don't know if you know this. I live in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And I have to say that being a Midwesterner, we don't generally think of, that if quality food next to a gas station. Sort of a rule. That's not the connection. Obviously, the South is different.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, to Matt Armstrong and Thad Hudgens, that was heaven. If you could find a location next to a gas station and open up a chicken tender concept, you have it made. And, actually, to some extent, they were right. It took them a little while to get the word out and understand what Huey Magoo's was all about, but it worked, and it launched the brand in a big and beautiful and meaningful way.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get involved?
So to fast forward, I guess to go back to my background somewhat, this is now my fourth chicken stop. I'm going to take you around Andy Howard's world of chicken.
All right.
So back in the day of the whole wood fire rotisserie craze, Kenny Rogers Roasters was on my radar, and I got together with a gentleman, may he rest in peace, John Y. Brown, who you may know as governor of Kentucky and owner of Kentucky Fried Chicken and owned the Boston Celtics. So he put Kenny Rogers Roasters together, and We had a heck of a run building about 300 stores. And at that point, then I got a call from another pretty outstanding, renowned chicken expert, George Nadaf, who was one of the original guys from Boston Market. Well, he bought a chain called Ranch One in New York City. So I jumped from the whole wood fire rotisserie chicken to the chicken breast which is what Ranch One concentrated on. We served a great chicken sandwich and a salad and a burrito and a pasta dish, all based around the chicken breast. So we had a nice run there. And while I was there, after a few years, got another call from a gentleman who said, Andy, I'm buying a chicken wing concept in Dallas, Texas. I said, yeah, what's that? He said, it's called Wingstop. I said, well, I guess I know that they serve wings, but what else do they serve? And the answer was nothing else. Come on. This guy named George Samaras and Bill Knight were the two guys that contacted me that I knew from my Ranch One days. I said, how can you build a brand around just chicken wings? Well, Andy, you're in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where you live. You got to get on a plane and come out to Dallas, Texas, and try this Wingstop concept. So sure enough, get on an airplane, fly out, and see the lines wrapped around the building, and try those chicken wings. And boy, I guess you could say the rest is history. But I came on board about in 2003 and had almost a 10-year run. We bought it with about 60, 70 stores. I left with about 600 stores after a 10-year run. It was an amazing run, national, international. But what kind of segues into what I'm doing now is, while the price of bone-in wings were going through the roof because of the popularity that we actually made the wing at Wingstop, when it used to be a throwaway item, you couldn't give it away, maybe spending, $1 a pound, if you would, on the back door price, and then it goes to $2 a pound and $3 a pound and more, and you just couldn't make a profit. So I had the bonehead idea at the time to put in a boneless product at Wingstop, and first of all, almost lost my job. They thought that was the worst idea I ever heard, because we are a bone-in concept, and there's no way that a boneless product is ever going to work at a brand called Wingstop. And I said, well, you got to try it and see. And sure enough, it was a huge success between a boneless wing and a strip. And it really kind of sort of saved the company from running a high 40, 41, 42% cost of goods down to more like a 32, 33 when wings were high and boneless wings were low. So it blended nicely, and it became a huge success, raising top line sales, and of course bringing a lot of money to the bottom line for the Wingstop chain. So it gave me the idea when it was time for me to, after 10 years of going back and forth from Fort Lauderdale to Dallas, Texas on a plane literally every week. Luckily, my wife is a saint and kept the family going here in Fort Lauderdale. So I said, boy, if I could find the world's greatest chicken tender with a similar business model to Wingstop, I think I would have something really, really special. And just by happenstance, I kind of Googled chicken tenders, and up comes Huey Magoo's. I had no idea who they were, but called the two founders and said, hey, I'm Andy Howard, and love to talk to you about, teaming up. Little did they know I wanted to buy the company, because the company was not for sale, but they thought I was coming to buy a franchise. So we got together, and when they saw my background and what I could bring to the table with only a couple of stores at the time with Huey Magoo's, they said, boy, Andy, we'd love somehow to partner up with you, and let's try to work on a purchase. So after about a year of negotiations, we made the deal, and I bought majority control of the company, and the two founders stayed on board with me. That was the first question I asked them. Do you want to stay or do you want to sell out? They said, no, Andy, we're here for the long haul. We love what we hope you can do and we can do together to build this brand into a national chain. And sure enough, we got together. And my other key, decision before I made a final decision was to bring Mike Sutter along with me. Mike was our vice president of training at Wingstop, and he is one of the finest operations training guys I know in the industry. And I needed Mike's buy-in to make this deal a reality. And when he came down and checked out Huey Magoo's and said, I'm in, I said, let's go. So that was 2015, 16 when we bought Huey Magoo's.
How many locations did it have at the time when you bought
Just
it?
a couple, with a third one barely under development. And we were looking at it just like I was at Wingstop. I wanted to sort of mirror the Wingstop business model, meaning inline, strip center. Drive-through wasn't even at the time part of our vocabulary. And that's what we were doing. There was a lot of low-hanging fruit. We cleaned up a lot of systems and procedures and purchasing and marketing, whole new design, but never ever changed the beautiful recipe of the chicken tender that we serve today. That's the same recipe we fell in love with way back when. All the secret ingredients, the secret sauces, the way we buy, the way we cook, all of our procedures. But what we did change along the way was how we develop our Huey Magoo's footprint. We tested and perfected a drive-through like most of the other chicken tender concepts are doing today. And it really has taken us to a completely another level as far as sales and profitability. And although we do give our franchisees their choice of how they want to develop, they can still open an inline store if they so choose. They can build from the ground up. They can convert second generations. They can do end cap drive-throughs. We've even got small express units in colleges and universities and football stadiums now. We're serving our tenders in Orlando at the University of Central Florida for all the football games. So we're in Boyd Gaming and a hotel casino in Las Vegas, and we're in the student union at the University of Central Florida on campus of the 70,000 population of UCF. So there's a lot of different ways to develop Huey Magoo's.
So what you're saying is your real estate and development process is a little bit more sophisticated than going next to a gas station.
We've come a long way. Yes, we definitely study demographics now, and it's not just next to a gas station. We like as best we can, main within reason. Do a lot of study of competitors and analytics, and we think we're pretty good at picking real estate as well.
Yeah. So like that, your work history pretty much, for the most part, kind of mirrors just the general history of the chicken business. Yeah, I mean, like from bone-in and rotisserie, and then
so from the whole chicken to the chicken breast to the chicken wing to I save the best for last, the chicken tender. Mm-hmm. Somebody asked me the other day, well, what the heck's left, Andy? I said the chicken feet. Those all go to Asia, and I'm not going to Asia for that one. So I'm going to stay here in the good old USA.
Well, I don't know. Don't. I guess we probably shouldn't knock it because we were shipping all of our wings to Asia back in the day.
Yeah, well,
and now we're still
right.
shipping a bunch of them to Asia, but now keeping enough of them, and the supply chain is just crazy on that particular product. Yeah. But so now, did something in terms of so last year you added the numbers that I have here, and you can correct any of them if they're wrong. You added 22 locations last year, so things seem to have really picked up lately. What's going on? Yeah,
we basically doubled the size of the company. Mm-hmm. As we bring on quality franchisees, they have a development schedule, and it usually escalates along the way. We have a minimum. You must sign up for at least 3 stores at Huey Magoo's, but we really don't have any maximum depending on the strength of the franchisee and net worth and financial. So we've got some franchisees that have committed to 20 stores or more over X number of years. So, as the development agreement are written, it's usually, 1 the first year and possibly 2 the second year, 2 the third, 3 the fourth, depending on the size of the commitment. So in years coming up, like I said, we got 50 open and another 250 sold, and we're selling new deals all the time. So hopefully exponentially our growth is going to be even greater than it's been. We're excited about the growth. We're excited that our existing franchisees continue to build more stores, and of course we're bringing on brand new franchisees as well. So it's a combination of both.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What is it about chicken tenders right now? Because it's a really hot market, and you've got some. You're not the only fast growing chicken tender concept out there by a long shot. What is it about chicken tenders that is proving so popular?
Well, we love that the friendly competitors have kind of, excuse me, they've set the framework for the consumer and what a chicken tender is all about. So when we come in, usually the other guys are kind of already there. Listen, I know everybody says that their tender is better than the next guy, but we truly believe it. First of all, that's all we buy. There's only 2 tenders in every chicken. It's the true tenderloin. Of course, we have our own secret way of how we, the recipe, the spices, the herbs, the secret ingredients. We do it different than a lot of other folks. We have trademarked the line, the filet mignon of chicken. We believe we stand by it, that our tender is superior to anybody else in the industry. Our customers are telling us that. A lot of friendly competition out there that may claim theirs are pretty good too, but there's plenty of room for all of us. We think we can stand tall against the big boys, and we're getting there one store at a time. So we like where we are. We like where we're headed. Our tender is phenomenal. We hand bread it, we grill it, we sauce it. That's the only protein we bring at Huey Magoo's is the all natural tenderloin that we're very creative with, but we're very, very focused operationally on nothing but the tender.
Mm-hmm. So you got a lot of demand from franchisees at the moment, it seems?
To say the phones are ringing off the hook is an understatement. And I, amongst being president and CEO, I love to also wear the hat of the franchise sales guy. I'm the first call that when a franchise request comes in, it comes to me. And it keeps me busy. It's that important to me that we pick the right franchise partner. We vet them as best we can. They're vetting us. We're vetting them. We have them meet our leadership team. We have them meet a variety of different franchisees around the country. We let them do as much due diligence as they need to do, and we'll do the same on them. It's a partnership for the next 20 years or more. And this is as serious as a heart attack, as they say. It's life-changing, hopefully for the good for them as well as us. But we're already in this business. They've got to love it as much as we do, or else we don't want them coming on board. It's a big deal.
Mm-hmm. What do you look for specifically in a new franchisee?
Well, now we really do want restaurant experience folks that usually come from another brand. The benefits are they've usually got an organization in place. They've got operations in place. We're franchising those that know their local markets. So from the real estate point of view, you're already pretty aware on what areas are where you want to be because real estate is so critical. And then, of course, it gets into what I just said, the passion of loving Huey Magoo's because of the life-changing event. Listen, we've got folks coming in that are going to spend millions and millions of dollars on our brand. And it's serious. We take that very seriously. It's a huge responsibility for us. And we know how important it is for them to find the right brand that they're going to be with for the next 20 years. So we're all doing our own due diligence, and hopefully we come together and they come through our discovery day, meet our leadership team, and we get the check off from our team, and they're ready to move ahead, and we sign them up and we go. So that's kind of the process.
I believe that the success of a franchise business is often determined largely by that selection process. In other words, one of my theories is that a brand gets the franchisees it deserves. And if you're going to treat that process like we're just going to take anybody that comes, you're going to get anybody that shows up. And if you are selective about your operators and take that process of choosing your franchisee seriously, that's easily the most important step in the whole process.
Couldn't agree with you more. Agree with you more. So we always tell the franchisees also, this is never our timeline. It's your timeline. We want you to do as much due diligence as you can on us. And likewise, we're going to do the same on you. But you will never hear from us. If I don't hear from you by next week, the deal's off. That will never come out of our mouths. And frankly, we turn down a lot more people than we accept. We kind of know fairly early on that they're not qualified for whatever reasons, and we don't have to waste too much time. But then we get into the serious discussions about what it means to be a Huey Magoo's franchisee. And certainly we have, stringent operations requirements. Mike Sutter and his team are heavily involved in our decision making when we bring a franchisee on board. We want, not only want, we require Mike and his team's absolute approval, or without their approval, I will not approve somebody. That's how important operations is to our business, and it should be.
Yeah. So now you're looking for exclusively drive-through sites, or no?
No, not at all. We allow our franchisees to pick and choose how they want to develop. I would say majority are going to be doing drive-throughs, but we still have certainly more than a handful of franchisees who still like the inline model. A little bit easier to find real estate, a little bit less money to build. And then on the flip side, we've got as many who have said, if not more, Andy, if you didn't allow us and you didn't perfect the drive-through, we wouldn't even be talking to you today. So the franchisees love the flexibility. Some are doing both. Some are exclusive to drive-throughs, and some are still exclusive to inline non-drive-through. So we drive our development department a little bit crazy with all these different models, but they've got it down to a science, and we're pretty good at it no matter what the franchisee wants to do.
Yeah. I want to wonder if in some markets, because like drive-through demand right now, from a development standpoint, is very intense. In fact, I hear from franchisees of some large concepts, like you can't open a new drive-through. Now it depends. I wonder, it's probably market dependent as much as anything else. Yeah. Meanwhile, you got all this availability of inline sites still, because you got so much of this development is pushed over in one direction. And you almost wonder if it, especially given, so many, ways that you can make, the act of ordering from a restaurant meal more convenient. It almost makes some sense to look at inline sites. To me, you could probably, get them lower, at lower costs. They're easier to operate. They're easier to, it makes some sense to go in the other direction.
Well, it absolutely does. And you kind of hit it on the head with all the technology today on inline space. It's almost as convenient as drive-throughs, and even somewhat more, because with Uber Eats and DoorDash that we use, certainly you can still sit on your couch, order Huey Magoo's, it will come right to your front door. If you want to, call ahead or place an order on the app, you can go to our curbside parking in most of our stores and wait in your car. We'll bring it out to you, so you never have to leave your car. So the conveniences of a drive-through, even with an inline, are just out there as much or more. So that's why we still are very successful with inline locations. That's why franchisees still like to do them, and we will continue with inline as well as drive-through.
Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on delivery at this point? How much delivery are you doing?
We're doing a lot. I'd rather not give the number, but it's a serious number. It's a big part of our business. Of course, we charge a whole lot more money on the delivery side of things because of the commission that we pay, but we make up for that on the increase in price, and the consumer doesn't really seem to care within reason. So yeah, we need to charge that to make the profits we need. But people are willing to pay for convenience, and it's working, very, very nicely. Yeah. We think it's for sure here to stay.
Yeah. I mean, I generally am on the record as saying that consumers are the ones that have to pay for delivery because it's a service. Yeah. But we're also seeing, it seems like, a growing level of concern. We're asking all operators this right now, is it seems like there's a growing level of concern out there about, some of the delivery charges, or actually the higher menu prices that we're seeing on delivery orders versus inside the restaurant. And we've had some efforts on the part of DoorDash and companies like that. And, some consumers are getting, sticker shock. Well, again, I mean, delivery costs money. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree. It's getting to the point where by the time you add the extra charges that we have to charge, plus their service fees, delivery fees, it is being passed along to the consumer. And where is that breaking point is certainly a concern. Fortunately, we really haven't seen it, but I think we're all getting pretty close to that top line where at some point is the value proposition, even though you're paying for convenience, does it get to be too much. But it seems like every brand is kind of forced to do it for all those reasons. That we're all in it together, I guess you could say, on having to charge these higher prices. Now, we still think us being in a fast casual mode are still very somewhat reasonable compared to some other brands. But yeah, even within our category, it's getting somewhat expensive, no doubt. Plus, you got labor going up on our end and minimum wage, depending on what state you're talking about, whether it's federal or statewide. So all those things lead to having to pass most of this along to the consumer. Or else, why be a business if you can't make a profit?
Exactly. Andy, this was great. I really appreciate you joining me on the podcast. Loved it.
Same here. Beautiful. Thanks for having me. I loved it.
And that should do it for this week's episode of A Deeper Dive, which was edited, as always, by Kimmy Kazmarek. Artwork by Nico Hines. You may find this and other episodes of the podcast on our website at www.restaurantbusinessonline.com/article/deeper-dive. And please subscribe to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere else you get your podcasts. I'm Jonathan Mays, your host, podcast producer, and the editor-in-chief of Restaurant Business. Thank you for listening.